The Baltimore Ravens needed pass rush, and that is exactly what they acquired. The Ravens make a trade to bolster that defense ahead of the stretch run. We talk about who it was, what it means, and what else could be coming. All that and more coming up on this instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome in to the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravenswire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, tuning in, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And of course, thank you out there to all the everydayers, first-time listeners, and if you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Obviously, our shows are Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. Eastern time, but we have instant reaction shows when big news happens. And this certainly qualifies as that, as the Ravens have officially traded for some pass rush help. Dre'Mont Jones from the Tennessee Titans, come on down. You're the latest addition to this team. So we're going to talk about who Dre'Mont Jones is, what he brings to the team, some stats and how we can help out this Ravens defense, and a lot more. Also, dive into what the trade means for the Ravens and what other moves could be coming down the pipeline because, in my opinion, this is a move. It's a good one, but it also can't just be the only move that they make. I know they made the Oweh trade for Gilman and whatnot, but I think that more needs to happen. So we'll dive in everything. We really do have a jam-packed episode today. So thank you for being here with me to react to this with me. I mean, we're all reacting together. I want to remind everyone that today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. All right, Dre'Mont Jones. The Ravens have traded for Dre'Mont Jones. The full terms of the deal is the Ravens are getting Dre'Mont Jones, and the Ravens are sending back a 5th rounder that can turn into a 4th rounder. It's a conditional pick. At the time of this recording, it doesn't say what the conditions are, but it is a conditional 5th rounder that could possibly, become a 4th rounder. So we had talked about it. The Ravens were slated to have 5 5th-round picks, 3 of their regular. It's the Ravens pick, the Jets pick, and the Chargers pick, plus 2 comp picks for Patrick McCary and Brandon Stevens. The Ravens didn't need all those picks. So I had said, have your assets work for you. Go and trade for a guy that can help you, right? Trade for a guy that can help you. And Dre'Mont Jones certainly does that. Now, who is Dre'Mont Jones? Dre'Mont Jones, he is 28 years old. He'll turn 29 in a couple of months. He's a player that has been around a little bit. He spent his first 4 years in Denver before spending his next 2 in Seattle, followed by this year in Tennessee. But Dre'Mont Jones gives you inside-outside versatility. He started his career more on the D-line, on the interior, and has kind of shifted a little bit more to the outside. He's never had below 3.5 sacks in a season. And since his rookie year, he's never had below 4.5 sacks in a season. He currently has 4.5 sacks for the Titans this year. But all 4.5 of those sacks have come in the last 4 games. Just a little game log here. He had a sack against the Raiders. He had a sack against the Patriots, a sack against the Colts, and then he had 1.5 sacks against the Chargers this past week. So production certainly on the uptick for Dre'Mont Jones, but he's someone that, again, the Ravens love moving guys around. And so Dre'Mont Jones currently, he's listed at right around 6'3", 281. And there are a lot of things that they can do with him that I'm really intrigued with because Dre'Mont Jones, his snap alignment this season, he's lined up a lot on both edges. He's lined up, and this coming from Yuri, so shout out to Yuri. He put out the graphic of Dre'Mont Jones playing 194 snaps at left outside linebacker, 157 snaps at right outside linebacker, but he also has snaps at right end, at left end, at defensive line. So again, this is a guy that you can move both in and out. And we know the Ravens like to do that with a lot of their guys. I mean, some of these guys have that positional versatility, but it's something that the Ravens can really, really do a good job with because that to me is what their defense is predicated on. Now, I'm not necessarily going to be dropping Dre'Mont Jones back into coverage, but I have a feeling they might ask him to do some of that. But it's the versatility that they love. And the Ravens, and there was a stat from Jonas Schaefer that was put out earlier in the day, and I'm going to pull it up because I actually already recorded an episode for tomorrow with Brian McFarland, Ravens salary cap. We talked a lot about the deadline. That happened before the move, but we're going to have that episode, parts of it come out because we talked about a lot of things that are still relevant. One of the stats we talked about was Jonas Schaefer saying that since losing Nnamdi Madubuike, the Ravens' pressure rate on plays without blitzes is an NFL worst 17.2% per SIS. And over the past decade, no defense has finished the season even below 20%. So we know the Ravens, their pressure rates have been getting better, but they're blitzing a ton because they haven't had a lot of guys that can win one-on-ones. And I think for Dre'Mont Jones, he has the size. He's someone that can win one-on-one. And same thing, this isn't a move they made today, but Carl Lawson, who John Harbaugh said is ready essentially, he's another guy that you can just kind of line up out there, set it and forget it. He can win with his array of moves. I think Dre'Mont Jones, he has a lot that he can offer in that way too. Dre'Mont Jones also an expiring deal, so there's no added money for Baltimore unless he does re-sign with the Ravens next season. Right now his contract, it was a 1-year, $8.5 million deal. His base salary though was $9.5 million there, so that's what the Ravens will be covering there. The $995,000 base salary. My bad, $995,000, but it's a low risk, high reward move that can pay off for them. And look, with the way that the Ravens have needed help on the interior as well as the edge, I think it's solid. Is it a move that is going to, the Ravens have Dre'Mont Jones to win in the Super Bowl? No, but it's a move that can be a move, but not the move. Hopefully, and we'll dive into this over the rest of the instant reaction. Hopefully the rest of it can be, they get Quinnen Williams, which I've seen people talk about in the chat. Maybe they can add another corner to replace Jaire Alexander. Offensive lineman would be really huge as well. So, look, there are a lot of different things. And I see SG talking about it. Jones specifically was on my wish list because of his versatility. Can line up at both edge and defensive tackle. The exact kind of player profile the front seven desperately needs. And that's it. You can plug and play this guy. And that's what the Ravens love to do. It's the versatility. And I see John talking about it. It's an upgrade in a lot of different areas. Again, is Dre'Mont Jones going to come in here and all of a sudden be like a double-digit 10-sack player by the end of his Ravens year this year? Probably not. I'd love it. I'm not going to rule it out. But I'll tell you what, the Ravens right now are in a really good spot because as the deadline gets closer and closer, I think teams start to scramble a little bit. Not necessarily always, but there's always that, like, are we going to get anybody? Is anything going to happen? That's what, front office people is like, all right, we have all these deals on the table. But Dre'Mont Jones was one of those guys in Tennessee that a lot of people had linked to a lot of different teams, someone who could go and help. And the Ravens, by the way, they are also in competition with a lot of other contenders for these edge guys and for these defensive linemen. So getting this out of the way now, because I don't expect Baltimore to add another edge guy. Now, on the defensive line, Quinnen Williams or one of those guys would still be really, really good. Is that a Calais Campbell? I don't know. We'll dive into that a little bit later. But even still, getting Dre'Mont Jones, when I'm curious by the end, when we're at 4:00 p.m. tomorrow, I'm curious to see which edge guys will be traded and which ones weren't. But I'll tell you, Dre'Mont Jones, with his versatility and some of the other stuff he's bringing to the table, the production, he was probably a pretty valuable commodity across the league. And I'm sure that what did it was the potential for this pick, the 5th rounder that Baltimore traded to go to a 4th rounder, to give Tennessee that extra added incentive. And so a 4th rounder for a rental, I mean, that's a decently steep price if it gets there. But I think for the Ravens, if they are serious about contending this season and getting back on track, they have to trade away some of that draft capital. And I'm really glad Baltimore did it. I don't think the pick has been specified. I don't apparently it might be the Jets pick, which, again, would that would probably, if it's a 5th rounder from the Jets, it's going to be more so like a late 4th. But the Titans and Ravens actually made a trade, which is another big storyline here because we all know what happened with Derrick Henry 2 years ago and how the owner vetoed that deal. The Ravens have been very close in recent seasons to acquiring people to help their team, right? We know with Calais Campbell last year, Mike McDaniel said, nope, I want Calais Campbell, even though it looked like a deal was going to get done between Miami and Baltimore. But the Ravens, they get their guy here, and I'm really happy that he can play multiple. I'm going to keep saying it, multiple positions. That's really, really good. but it can't be the only move you make. And I think that's kind of the consensus here is like, this is a solid move. It has some upside. The production is picked up for Dre'Mont Jones. He gives you the inside-outside versatility. He can win one-on-one. He can align in a lot of different areas, but it can't be the only move that you make. If your deadline haul is Alohi Gilman and Dre'Mont Jones, that's kind of underwhelming considering what else this team needs. Because I think while Dre'Mont Jones will mask a couple of things, it's not the only move that they can make. And that to me is that investment on the interior. And part of that has to do with this season, obviously, but also long-term, hopefully Nnamdi Madubuike is okay, both from a football and a human level, but you don't really know what's going on there right now if you're the Ravens. So right now, Baltimore has added a guy that I think can provide a lot, and you get a lot of players in that, some guys are power guys, some guys are speed guys. We've started to see the uptick in pressure, but again, you can't just blitz over and over and over again and have that be a successful strategy in the postseason. Better teams are going to figure that out. Dre'Mont Jones and to an extent, Carl Lawson do give another opportunity for you to move some of those guys off of the line. Now, I'm not saying eliminate that altogether, but you just, it's been a real struggle when Baltimore has rushed with 4. And that's part of the reason why we're seeing so many blitzes from this Ravens team. So coming up in the second part of the show, we will continue talking about Dre'Mont Jones and other moves the Ravens could make, players that are available, trade deadline. Ooh, this is a really, really fun time in the season. So be sure to stay tuned. We have plenty coming your way here on Locked On Ravens.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
And the show is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters, and the Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today. It's more serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. The supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Moving along here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still rocking out with you, diving into the Ravens, making a move, another move. They've been busy over the course of the last couple of weeks here, as I think they've needed to be. Baltimore trades for Dre'Mont Jones from the Tennessee Titans. Jones coming to Baltimore. A conditional 5th-round pick that could be a 4th-rounder goes back to Tennessee. Appreciate everybody for being here today. We had an episode this morning. We have 5 days a week plus more daily Ravens coverage and content for you with the regular show, instant reactions like this, watch alongs during game days, reactions after games. We have Locked On Ravens Squad show twice a week. And that actually, right after we're done with this, we're going to pop right on over to Locked On Ravens Squad show and talk about this move even more. So be sure you check that out and subscribe in video form and audio form. But all right, let's do some grades here. I always like doing these when we do instant reaction shows, getting the vibe of everybody in the chat, and appreciate everybody for being here. Laura, I see you. Chris, Boba, Jesse, Dylan, so many more that I'm not seeing right now. But let's do some grades. How are we feeling about this deal? A through F. What is your grade for this move? it's a low risk, high reward move. And again, we're going to do like whole grades. We're going to have a stream tomorrow after the deadline. And I'm going to talk a lot about, what moves the Ravens made or didn't make over the course of the next 24 hours, essentially just under 24 hours right now. So again, if this is the only move Baltimore makes, the grade goes down for me because I think that they do need more. But if we're just doing this in a vacuum and looking at the move itself, I mean, I think it's probably a B. Dre'Mont Jones is a solid player. He's not a Micah Parsons or Max Crosby or, Myles Garrett or any of those guys. But, at the same time, you do probably have to eliminate that edge position. Depending, again, the Ravens could have to play him on the interior. I wouldn't do that right now. His body is not what it was in terms of playing on the interior over and over again, but you can play him in there for snaps. But so when you're talking about guys like Jermaine Johnson, Kayvon Thibodeau, Will McDonald, if he was available, Arden Key, some of those other players, those guys are probably off the table for the Ravens unless they really want to go hard at that edge position. So he has the experience. He has the sack numbers. Again, he's not a double-digit sack guy, and I'm not expecting him to be that. I'm not expecting him to come in here and be somebody that is going to be this team's best pass rusher and go out there and all of a sudden be, superstar player. But honestly, there's not a superstar player available that the Ravens could get unless you're talking about Quinnen Williams, who I think is everybody's next choice here. If your deadline at the end of this thing is Alohi Gilman, Dre'Mont Jones, Quinnen Williams, and one of Kevin Zeitler or Cesar Ruiz, and again, Brian and I talk a lot about other targets the Ravens could target and look at over the course of the next 24 hours, you're coming out of that. You're feeling really, really good. If it's just Dre'Mont Jones and Alohi Gilman, that does change things a little, but he gives you just versatility, right? He just gives you versatility. There were other guys that I had talked about. Like, I think Arden Key would have been pretty solid. Thibodeau, if he was available, it seems like he's not, or the asking price is super, super high. I don't know about all that, but for me, I think the interesting part about Dre'Mont Jones is his again, the Ravens, they're showing that they want more versatility. They want more versatility, and they want guys that can win one-on-one. And there's another point that people are making about this also being able to free up others, not just, we've talked about, Alohi Gilman freeing up Kyle Hamilton. Well, Dre'Mont Jones, he can probably get pass rushes like Mike Green, for example. He can get pure pass rush snaps now. He doesn't have to necessarily hold it down on the edge. Dre'Mont Jones, excuse me. Dre'Mont, I'm talking basketball. Dre'Mont Jones can do that. He can hold down the edge early. He can anchor it down. I think he is solid there for the most part, if what I'm seeing is correct. So that's also something where, you're not going to have as much now on Mike Green's plate, which isn't a bad thing in my opinion, but depending on who else the Ravens add, you can do a decent amount. So it'll be interesting to see how he acclimates early on, because I think for the Ravens, they're going to look, it can't just be like, you need a month to get up. That's why Jaire Alexander's gone. He couldn't get his body up to speed properly. And, he was bad against Buffalo, like all of that. Well, there's no time for that anymore. If Dre'Mont Jones is not picking up the defense, or if he's not producing, or if it's just been bad, well, you're not going to play. It is what it is. But right now, the Ravens only having 3 outside linebackers. They needed to do something. It's a guy that I had on my target list. He wasn't my number one guy, but I just think it's an overall fine move. It's a solid move. It's not the best move in the world. It's not the worst move in the world. It's just kind of like, okay, like, all right, you got a piece, but now can you add more pieces to complement the rest of your team, the rest of this defense? Because if you can add another player like a Quinnen Williams, that's a needle mover. All right, Dre'Mont Jones is not a necessarily needle mover, but he does give you another option. And honestly, like, David Ajabo's had to step up here, and he has had some moments, but I would trust Dre'Mont Jones over David Ajabo. I think that's a no-brainer, right? It's just getting a guy in. And again, the Ravens still have more draft capital to operate with, still projected for 4 5th-rounders, or if that pick does become a 4th, we will see. I don't know if I'm actually curious. I actually don't know if the conditional 4th aspect of it takes Baltimore's 4th rounder this year off of the table, because it's possible that it could get moved. So I'll look that up and see if there's anything about that. But, I just, I don't know. I see people talking about Calais Campbell and, what he could potentially bring. And those are the types of moves, again, like, I think people in the consensus on this is that the Ravens need to finally spend that draft capital the way they did for Roquan Smith. Is that a second and a fifth for Quinnen Williams, a third and a fifth for Quinnen Williams? If the Ravens just go out there and make a move for, like, I don't know. I don't want Calais would be a fine move, but it's one of those moves that, like, it's not that high level, like, multiple year guy. Like Quinnen Williams, you would have in Baltimore for multiple seasons. As I mentioned, Dre'Mont Jones is more of he's a rental, could be re-signed after the season. But again, like, I'm cool with this move as long as there's something else. If this was their big plan, then it's really not much of a big plan after all. But I think that Jones is fine. He's fine. I see that. Again, I think a lot of the negativity when it comes to this move is in the fact that it's not that needle mover move. And I've talked about that on the show before, where I've been like, look, if you're not going to make a needle moving move, don't make a move at all. But at this point, like, you just didn't have a lot of other options. Like, it's not like Baltimore was flush at the edge position with like 6 guys that can play. You're not in that situation right now. You just needed bodies, needed guys, and maybe they do add a second guy. I'm not sure. I mean, that 53-man roster spot is now taken up by Dre'Mont Jones that they freed up for Jaire Alexander. So if they did make a move or two again, like in the next 20 hours or so, they would have to move off of some guys. But we're gonna see. And I see people talking about Quinnen Williams in there, like 100%. I see Dylan asking, is Jones better than Lawson? I would say so. I think both guys are fine. I think that Lawson, he shouldn't have been out there for so long, but he was waiting for the right opportunity. So he had said he, was looking around, and Baltimore felt like the right place for him, which is great. Like, I'm totally down with that. That Dre'Mont Jones and Carl Lawson, these are 2 vets that you just didn't have before. And we talked about like how scarce that position has been. So just continue to make your assets work for you. I see Ramsey talking about it where, the team has 11 draft picks. I think they're projected for 10 now, if I'm not mistaken. It's double digits still, but now you have an opportunity to move off of more of those, because like we talked about last year, 11 draft picks were not making the roster, and they did not. There were 3 guys that didn't, 2 due to unfortunate injuries, but the other one, Garrett Dellinger, just not making the roster whatsoever. It's a move that you're not giving up. Again, if this was like a 3rd rounder for Dre'Mont Jones, I'd have a lot more questions. But a 5th round pick, when you're already projected to have so many more, is inconsequential. You're trading for a guy that hopefully can help you at multiple positions. Like we talked about on the offensive line, how, they've missed Patrick McCary a lot. And while McCary doesn't necessarily have like the build to play all 5 positions, he certainly plays it. And he plays all of them in a decently solid way. He did for Baltimore. And that versatility is essentially 5 guys, 5 roster spots in one. So Dre'Mont Jones, I believe that you are adding a guy that can count for 2 roster spots in one, which is really, really big with that versatility. And, 4.5 sacks through the season so far, through half the year. I mean, that's not terrible. I mean, I get it. The production is recent, but still, over the past month, he's gotten all of his production with 4.5 sacks. And that, to me, they were playing a guy now in Los Angeles and Lafayette who has certainly found his production over there, but they were playing a guy with no sacks, and he's able to win effectively and efficiently. So, like the Eagles traded for Jaelan Phillips earlier today. Is Dre'Mont Jones a better player than Jaelan Phillips? No, he's not. Is he a better player than Jermaine Johnson? No, he's not. Is he a better player than Kayvon Thibodeau? No, he's not. But realistically, and again, this is just the Ravens. It's not what I would do. I would trade away a lot of these picks for guys, but realistically for the Ravens, they're just not going to make those moves. Like, I would rather them make a move for Quinnen Williams with that 3rd round pick and 5th round pick as opposed to Jaelan Phillips. And maybe that's what their big plan is, but that's what I need to see here. I need to see the rest of the plan. When the clock strikes 4 on Tuesday, well, we're going to see, because again, right now the move is fine. But if it's the only move that they make, or they make another like lower tier move, like to me, this is a low tier to mid tier, probably in the middle of a low tier to mid tier move, right? With the player you're getting here, a guy that can help you, can help impact some stuff, but is not going to be like all of this like star player. If they make another one of those moves and that's the only move that they make, that's a problem, because I think they need more. They need a lot more here. I think 2 more moves, That's my ideal situation. Realistically, I probably see one more. For them. So there are a lot of conversations to be had about Dre'Mont Jones. We'll continue them in the final part of the show, as well as what other moves the Ravens can make, not only defensively, but obviously on the offensive side of the ball. The Ravens should not be ignoring that. So be sure to stay tuned. We have plenty coming your way here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel, and the NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And for me, I'm a big Denver Nuggets guy in the NBA. And right now, the Nuggets, they're plus 700 to win the championship on FanDuel. That's the third best odds, only behind the Cleveland Cavaliers at plus 650 and the Oklahoma City Thunder at plus 200. And I'm liking that number for Denver. I think they're a team with their championship pedigree and the moves they made this offseason. I think they're going to go on a run this year. So right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We return. Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still rocking out with you here on this Monday night. Appreciate everybody for being here, spending some time with me, reacting to the Dre'Mont Jones trade. Dre'Mont Jones being traded to Baltimore for a 5th rounder that can move up to a 4th rounder. The Ravens finally bolster that pass rush a little bit with a guy that can play both on the interior and exterior, but I assume they're going to use him a lot based off of where he's been aligned on the exterior, but I'm sure the Ravens will also want to use him a lot in that versatile role. So we'll be on the Locked On Ravens squad show right after this, by the way. Sam and Njoku and I, maybe we'll get a wild Qadri Ismail, or even maybe Nick Moore, Ravens long snapper, will join us. We'll see. We're going to be breaking this down even further. So after this, be sure you pop on over to that. And I see Ron right here asking the question, what young Pro Bowl caliber guard is available for trade? And, I think a lot of people around have been talking about Kevin Zeitler. Now, he is not young. He is certainly Pro Bowl caliber, but he is not young. A lot of people recently have been talking about Cesar Ruiz, who was a 1st rounder of the Saints. Seems like all those years ago, wasn't really that long ago, but Cesar Ruiz, he's someone that has been getting a lot of rumbling over the last handful of days, even dating back to last week a little bit. And Ruiz is a player that you can plug in on that right side. His contract, and this is actually something that Brian and I talked about during the show that we recorded for tomorrow. So this is a guy that I think could be a huge fit. Now, his contract right now, his base salary for the next 2 seasons, 2026 and 2027, $9.5 million each. And Ruiz is someone that, again, was the 24th pick back in 2020. He has the pedigree. That's a move that I would make. And that's a move because, again, with Kevin Zeitler, it's like, how many more years does he have left? I mean, is he even going to play past this year? Still would be a fine move. I'd love it. But Cesar Ruiz could be like your mainstay at right guard for, the next handful of seasons. You can get that. You can move Falele to a reserve role. Maybe if Emory Jones is ready, you can plug him in at left guard for Voorhees. You should not be ignoring the offensive line if you're the Ravens. And I actually put a short out about this. I talked about it on the show last week. The Ravens have been teasing like, oh, well, everything's on the table. And this is what, doesn't really seem like it, if we're being honest. I mean, it seems like the Ravens are pretty content with their guys. Should they be? No, I think they should be aggressively looking for offensive line help. Now, the problem with offensive line help when they're trying to acquire it during the deadline is that everybody needs offensive line help. And because of that, nobody is willing to give it up. Now, again, with some of the veterans like a Zeitler or a team that's truly rebuilding, like the Saints or, the Titans, for example, like it gets a little easier, but you also have to factor in that these guys are protecting rookie quarterbacks. And, that is going to have a big impact on the development if you just kind of trade away a guy that is helping you protect a rookie quarterback, even if that production is not there, and you just kind of plug in some random guy, some backup, and then that hurts the rookie's development even further. So, that to me, like offensive line truly is one of the biggest needs remaining. I still think, again, if you can make a trade for a D lineman like Quinnen Williams and an O lineman like Ruiz or Kevin Zeitler, that's perfect. I'd be okay with Calais Campbell, but I still think they need that one big move. And again, you're not going to have a guy like Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, like Micah Parsons, those types of moves. Trey Hendrickson is not coming to Baltimore. the division tax on that move would be absolutely unreal. So, at this point, you're more so, I guess you're more so looking at, and again, not that Quentin Williams would be a small move, or I know, people are talking about Dexter Lawrence or Jeffrey Simmons, like those types of names. I think you need to get one of those names because, again, it's not just about the short term. We don't know what's happening with Nnamdi Madubuike. And hopefully Nnamdi, again, like I said, hopefully he's okay, not just from a football perspective, but from a human level. Neck injuries are nothing to scoff at, and they're very scary. So, hopefully this is more so just, people not knowing as opposed to the very eerie nature of it. But if Nnamdi isn't able to continue his career, you can plug Quentin Williams in and feel pretty good about it. The other thing you do have to factor in is the fact that, if let's say Bradley Chubb, right? Bradley Chubb is also one of those guys you could have maybe thrown in there. I don't think he's an option for Baltimore anymore, but you could have maybe thrown him, like for an example, interior guy, exterior guy, playing him more on the edge, but that contract is huge. Dre'Mont Jones is an expiring deal. Now, again, if I'm the Ravens, you do have to look at things long-term, but you can't be completely tunnel focused on, okay, we have to win this short-term and long-term. There's no middle ground. It's okay to lose a deal like a year down the line if it helps you, if you truly feel like you have a chance. Because if you truly feel like you have a chance, I want to see them move like they truly believe they have a chance. So that to me is the big thing, where if it's just like this low to mid-tier move, which is, again, fine if it's just a move. It's like what we talked about a couple years ago with Nelson Aguilar and Odell Beckham Jr., where they signed Nelson Aguilar. Everyone's like, oh, this Ravens team, they're so cheap. They're just doing this again. And I said, it can be a move. It's fine as its own move. But if it's the only move they have at that position, it's not good. And now Odell, that contract, like the money was like, he was overpaid by Baltimore. Part of that was due to Lamar, and, he wanted to play with Odell, and Odell was looking for like $18 million, and the Ravens gave him up to 18. But that was the thing where it's like they needed Aguilar, but then another move at the position. And while Odell wasn't everybody's first choice or anything, I know people wanted D-Hop that year and other guys. That's what I'm talking about, where Dre'Mont Jones can be a move, but you need to make that bigger splash to have me feeling like, okay, now we're cooking. Jones can help you. Jones is going to help you. I'm not saying he's not. He's a really versatile player that has production. Again, he's never had below 4.5 sacks since his rookie season. So that to me is really intriguing. He's somebody that I think can really make an impact, taking stuff off of guys' plates, letting guys move around even further. There's more than just him and sacks and whatnot. But I see people still talking about the O-line and one of those positions, because Eric DeCosta, again, he's been aggressive with trades, making deals, but we also, it's okay to criticize him and say that he mishandled the guard position this offseason. The team mishandled the guard position this offseason. He has a real opportunity here to right his wrongs, to get a guy in that even if it's just for half a season with Zeitler or maybe more of a mainstay with Cesar Ruiz, this is an opportunity because you want to protect your star quarterback. You need to protect your star quarterback. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So I like the move of Dre'Mont Jones. I think it's a solid one. Now the next question becomes, how can the Ravens continue to bolster their team? They have a soft schedule, but that doesn't mean that all these games are automatic wins, right? It doesn't mean that. I mean, you also have teams that looked like easier wins at the beginning of the season that now are a little harder. That Patriots team, they're playing good football. The Vikings just made an impression against the Lions, right? Like, that Bengals defense is the worst defense in history, in my opinion, one of them. But that offense can put up points with the best of them. The Steelers just beat up on the Colts. Like, there are these games that a lot of people, the Ravens win. Well, it might be the case, and they might be favored and whatnot over on FanDuel. You got to play the games. You got to line up. And, at this point with where the Ravens are, the Ravens have cared about value forever. Comp picks and, not gaming the system, but, making sure that every little thing they want to make in their favor. It's okay to get the better end of a deal short term, but lose out on it long term, just to have the chance to compete for a Super Bowl, right? Like with Roquan Smith, they traded away that second rounder, right? That was a move that they made to help bolster their chances, right? You trade away high draft capital, you get somebody in the building that can be a fixture on your defense, short term and long term. I'm hoping that can be the case with what the Ravens do this time around, because, look, they absolutely need it. So it's okay. Look, this deal, like the Jaire trade and getting that pick and for the cap space, the roster, like, okay, that's great. But maybe they do add another cornerback to replace him, who is probably not as good of a player as Jaire. But At the same time, they might trust him a little bit more. So again, this Dre'Mont Jones trade, you get a guy in that can play multiple positions, and I think that's really good. But I want to see what they do before the 4 p.m. deadline. So we'll be talking about that. We're going to pop on over to the Locked On Ravens squad show right now. So be sure you stay tuned for that. But we're also going to have a lot. We'll have a regularly scheduled 6 a.m. episode again. Brian McFarland and I, Ravens salary cap expert. He and I talked a lot about the trade deadline. Plus, we'll have a live stream right around 4 p.m. talking about if the Ravens made any moves or not, and any other trade reactions that happened during that time. So be sure on the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. And I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.